No, I'm thinking 2-bit.
You thinking 2 bits?
The one you up. I mean, I sat back and watched as you came for Julio. You wanted his position and you took it. 2-bit wants mine. History repeats itself.
So this was a post from Matt Cedino, who plays Cristobal on Power. What happened to Cristobal anyway? Prison for life. And it got me thinking, what happened to Cristobal?
Cristobal's in jail, that person is correct.
So Corny Kemp addressed this in one of her Instagram live Q&As. Cristobal was picked up along with Alicia Jimenez, and apparently he's been in prison ever since. But with a new showrunner with Brett Mahoney, and also the show taking a dark turn as each season passes by, turning more street, could we see the return of Cristobal? So in this video, we're going to be running it back to Power by taking it down memory lane to break down the history of Cristobal, the partnership with Dre which also led to Julio's death. We're also going to take a look at the beef he had with a certain character that was reintroduced of Season 3 of Ghost. We're then going to round things off with how they can bring his character back to shake up and cause chaos in Power Book 2 Ghost Season 4. Now, Cristobal became the leader of the Taino organization after the death of Anibal. He was later picked up by law enforcement and questioned by Mike Sandoval around giving up his New York distributor. At the time, law enforcement believed Tommy was Ghost, but early on he demonstrated a deep loyalty to the street code and his own people. We then saw Cristobal making an appearance at the beginning of Season 3, where he and Tommy discussed business, as Tommy began to rebuild his organization. This was after Ghost got rid of Drifty, Vladimir and Ruiz, although Ruiz was sent away rather than being killed. Cristobal rightly questioned the heat Tommy and Ghost were facing from law enforcement, as it hadn't been long since Tommy had been fighting for his own freedom, but Cristobal eventually agrees to join Tommy's organization. Now, Season 4 started with Ghost in jail, which caused widespread panic in Tommy's network, and the man who was leading the questioning was Cristobal.
Now, how do we know that? I could just be what the feds are saying. Mr. Loco could be ratting us out right now.
Damn straight.
Cristobal was always someone who asked the right questions, and Ghost's arrest didn't fill the Primeras with confidence. Now, as Tommy positioned himself as the new Connect, that meant there was a vacant distro position available, and that position was filled by Julio. Dre wasn't happy with the decision because he was ambitious and an opportunist who was looking to climb the ranks of the drug trade. He was always hungry for more power, and this sparked a deep sense of jealousy in Dre. On the other hand, Cristobal meets with Uriel, who was the head of the Toros Locos gang. This was the same crew that Julio was once a part of before Ghost paid for his freedom. Cristobal was all about business, and he was making a move which benefited himself and his organization. But Julio and Tommy didn't take too kindly to this, especially when he failed to show up to pick up his product. This undermined Julio's leadership as distro, and Tommy saw it as outright disrespect. Although Julio was able to shake on a deal with Cristobal, I think we all know how Tommy deals with disrespect. Now, this caused issues between Cristobal and Julio, but before we get there, Julio and Dre were scooped up by the feds. Law enforcement began flexing their power through their badge, but Julio remained strong. Although that's not what Dre told Tommy. Despite Julio remaining loyal, a couple of traits that we've touched on earlier when it comes to Dre's character was him being ambitious and being an opportunist. Unhappy with Julio shutting down the drug business in the club, Dre begins to put a plan in motion that would change the course of the rest of the series. Dre tells Tommy when he and Julio were scooped up by the feds, he was in there longer than he was, implying he was a snitch. With Cristobal, he wasn't too happy that Tommy did his boy Domingo the way he did, which led to a confrontation with Julio. He told Julio that you have to earn respect, and from his viewpoint, he didn't have any. The disrespect for Julio continued as Dre intentionally missed a Primera meet, and then we saw an alliance form between Cristobal and Dre. An opportunist at work and manipulation at his finest, we saw Dre telling Julio that Cristobal was running his mouth, that he'd been getting extra keys, and how he was still looking to move to a new Connect. But Dre has a solution. He said that he knew some cats that had beef with their Connect, and they could replace Cristobal, but unbeknown to Julio, Dre was talking about the Toros Locos. The loss of Julio, which Cristobal was a part of, allows Dre to take the position as a new distro, and they continue to collude behind Tommy's back. They wanted to avoid a war with the Jimenez, and they come together to take his organization from beneath him by burning Tommy's warehouse full of product. With no product to supply his Primeras, he had a problem, especially because he wanted to mount a war with the Jimenez, thinking they were behind his warehouse being burned. But with no product, we saw each and every single Primera walk away, which was a part of Dre and Cristobal's plan. This allows them to build a new drug network with Dre as the head of the organization, and with the Primeras pledging their loyalty to Dre, Alicia and Diego Jimenez agree. Now, Season 5 picks up with Cristobal and Dre on the same page, but with their heads on a swivel after the failed assassination attempt on Kanan. So Cristobal recognized they had a problem. They created enemies in Tommy, Ghost and Kanan. Cristobal suggested they let the Jimenez deal with them, but Dre shuts down the idea because he made a promise to the Jimenez cartel they were purely going to focus on business and money, not wars. In the line of work that Dre and Cristobal found themselves in, egos and ideas will always clash, and this was the first disagreement. 2-Bit suggested Arturo takes over the Toros Locos gang because he was younger, easy to control, but Cristobal says that's the wrong move. After 2-Bit decides to take matters into his own hands by taking out Lorenzo of the Toros Locos gang, Cristobal tells him they have to take him and Spanky out, but instead Dre takes away the blind pig, which was Dre's gambling operation, and he gives this to Cristobal. Later, Alicia Jimenez has other ideas for Cristobal. She orders Dre to show him how to operate the books at the clubs, so when they expand, he's in a position to step up for the Jimenez cartel. But soon after, both Diego and Alicia Jimenez were arrested, which leads them to temporarily shutting down their drug operation. Later, Cristobal's men were being taken out and he thought it was 2-Bit, which in fact was Kanan in the shadows.
2-Bit wants mine. History repeats itself.
This is something that could reignite this tension between Cristobal and 2-Bit in Power Book 2 Ghost, and that also adds to the theory, but we're going to get to that later on. Now tension begins to rise between Dre and Cristobal after Dre thinks he was being set up, but unfortunately his hands were tied. Diego Jimenez made Cristobal Dre's second in command. After Cristobal meets with Dre's boss Quinn Phillips, he's given the position of running the nightclubs while Dre's overseas. He also mentioned that he has cousins in Miami and has experience in the nightlife industry, which does raise the question, what do we know about Cristobal and his backstory? Alicia Jimenez then later becomes the head of the cartel after the death of Diego, and with Alicia at the helm, she promotes Cristobal, which leads to tension between him and Dre. But despite Dre not liking the fact now he has to answer to the same person who once used to take orders from him, he reluctantly accepts his new role. Now later, Cristobal meets with Alicia at a hotel, and thanks to Dre's information, the FBI storm into the hotel room and arrest both Cristobal and Alicia. Now following their arrest, Alicia Jimenez was later killed by Jason Michich, but it was confirmed that Cristobal still remains in an orange jumpsuit. Now that story time's over, let's talk about how Cristobal can influence Power Book 2 Ghost. Now first we have to address the issue of Cristobal being in jail or prison, but having Cristobal released really wouldn't be that difficult in Power. We saw Kanan being released because of suppressed evidence, Tommy and Lorenzo through prosecutorial misconduct, and 2-Bit with the help of Davis and Blanca Rodriguez. There's also another get out of jail free card in the game of Power, snitching like Tony Teresi, although that would go against Cristobal's character from what we know of in Power, and it would almost certainly end in death. Although I for one believe that's what he deserves for his role in Julio's demise. But if Cristobal serves a storyline and purpose for season 4, then the writers will definitely find a way of bringing him out. Now the question I think we should ask next is, what happens if Cristobal is released? In Power, we have the Taínos, the RSKs and the Serbs, and I don't think all of them will return, but if Cristobal does, then we may see the return of the Taínos. Let's remember, one key part of the storyline in season 3 was Tariq and the Tejadas pushing weight for Noma, because they had to replace Mecca, so going into season 4 that hasn't changed despite this war. Noma will still expect those under her to push her product and keep the cash flowing, but they no longer have Braden and Tariq on board. Western Holdings, which was a big part of their organization, is also dead. So is the Jamaica Rav boys, and so are the Castillos who had a stronghold in Brooklyn for the Tejadas. So at this moment in time, it's Kane, Drew, Diana, and Effie, and they have to come up with a way of moving Noma's product. They have to fill that void left by Western Holdings and their dead crews. As we all know in Power, you never fuck with a Connect's money. That's one thing we've learned throughout Power, whether it's Billy Pilobos, Jason Michich, or Milan. So the Tejadas along with Effie, they need to think fast and they need to create a new operation to get things moving. So if Cristobal is released, could he be someone that brings value to Noma and Obi and offer her a different proposition? Cristobal is someone who worked under some of Power's biggest connects, eventually working his way up, albeit he didn't ask for the promotion. He also knows how to move product and he knows the game, strictly sticking to business. He ran the Blind Pig, which was Dre's gambling operation, and there was also reference to his past in restaurants in Miami, the nightlife industry, as well as his cousins. Cristobal is a very intelligent character, and he may still have a lot of connections in the street that can be highly beneficial for an organization like Noma's, so I think he's someone who Noma could take a liking to if he is released. Now bringing Cristobal into the business would be a smart business money making move, but it would also bring its own set of problems. We all know Kane Tejada is an ambitious individual who initially started off as the enforcer to the Tejada organization, but Kane felt as if he didn't get the respect and position he deserved, especially after Tariq took his place, although it is something which he later found under Mecca. In season 3, towards the beginning we saw Kane and Tariq on one team. They put aside their beef and they were moving product for Noma together, but in season 4, who do you guys think will want to be the shot caller and the so-called distro under Noma now that Monet's out of action? Kane will want to lead the organization, but would Cristobal take orders from someone like Kane? He's been there and done that with Dre, and look where that got him. We also have to look at another perspective. I think we can all see there's going to be an internal power struggle between Drew and Kane, and then there's Diana who doesn't even want to be in the game. So they may have shown a united front against Tariq St Patrick at the end of season 3, but this whole organization is completely fucked through manipulation, lies and betrayal. So could someone like Cristobal with all his experience in the street game under people like Tommy, Dre and the Jimenez come in and take advantage, showing he has shit on lock and under control, showing Noma he's well connected, able to move a product along with providing a pipeline and a network to move a shit ton of weight. Bringing back Cristobal would make perfect sense. You bring back a power OG, he brings back this element of the streets, and he's highly dangerous because he can certainly ruffle some feathers, which brings me on to 2-Bit. These are two characters who had a lot of bad blood between them in power, and I do feel like there's unfinished business between the two. One of the questions going into season 4 is, how do they integrate 2-Bit into the storyline, and how can Tariq get 2-Bit on side? Well, if Cristobal is working for the enemy, then 2-Bit and Tariq may find something in common. Although I do still feel it would take a bit more to get 2-Bit off Tariq's back. 2-Bit is a problem that does need to be addressed somehow. Tariq needs to deal with 2-Bit and make him a valuable part of his organization, which is why I think his storyline and character stays on Ghost, not Force. So this is another rivalry that can be reignited that goes all the way back to power. Cristobal versus 2-Bit. There are so many interesting ways that they can take this storyline, and going into season 4, who knows what we can expect. But Cristobal is a storyline and character they can tap into, even if it is just ruffling some feathers for one season with characters like Kanan, Obi and 2-Bit. So let me know your thoughts down below. Could Cristobal come back and create chaos? Drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.